Welcome to A Little TLC, the podcast where we embark on an enlightening journey through the ever-evolving world of education. I'm your host, Heather Volchko, and I'm on a mission to empower educators and change makers to skillfully navigate the intricacies of serving our most exceptional students. Every month, we'll be exploring a unique and timely theme in a mini-series format, whether we're digging into inclusive teaching practices, addressing student mental health challenges, or exploring the intricate connection between our personal and professional lives. Each month offers an in-depth exploration of weekly topics that truly matter. I hope you're ready to be both challenged and inspired because this is A Little TLC. So far this month, we talked about self-care and kind of that big concept. We also talked about all of the many reasons that it is incredibly difficult to find the time, make the time to actually choose self-care. So this week, we are trying to pull both of them together. That yes, there are lots of demands, all the things we talked about last week with all of our workplace expectations and all the things. And yes, there's this aspect of self-care and so many different ways that we can choose to actually care for ourselves. The goal of this week is to try to pull those things together. And offline before we were recording, Chris and I were having the aha moment of, man, like having a bit of a longer career, there's just a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of things that kind of come up and get in the way. So I'm super excited to see where Claire jumps in and really sets us right this week to really have that focus just truly even going into our careers, even though we're, a few years in, to be able to reset and say, no, actually, it is a both and. It's not a one, then the other, or a one or the other. It's a both and all the time, and what that looks like. So I'm super curious, Claire. I'm just going to toss this straight to you right from the beginning. When we're talking like holistic approaches, what does that look like? Like, clue us in because Chris and I need to learn.
So what kind of comes to mind right off the bat is like a physical well-being. So like
Mm,
making sure that you are sleeping enough, making sure that you are eating enough, or even like getting the appropriate diet. And I know that kind of sounds silly, and not everyone in the world kind of knows what an appropriate diet is, but like just eating things that like make your body feel like full or healthy. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Like in my opinion's always been like you can eat a piece of cake every day if you wanted to. It's just like portions, you know what I mean? Like you can allow yourself like some slack or some fun items. And then like your mental and emotional well-being as well too. So like if you are recognizing that like, hey, I am just not getting better, like it's been a couple of months now and I am feeling still stuff like reaching out for help. Like, and I know that that's
Mm.
very, very hard to do, but like getting on the phone and dialing a psychiatrist or trying to Google some therapy, people around you, therapists, that's who they are. Just like getting connected and informed in like your own personal life. And then social connections too, like as much as sometimes we forget about it in the work kind of field, like being able to connect with the people who support you, who make you feel good and like give you a sense of purpose. I know that sounds kind of silly also that like your friends give you a sense of purpose, but like they kind of do in a sense, as long as you can be giving them equally as good back.
No, absolutely. I mean, I love the many angles that you're all hitting because I know for me, sometimes I want to be around people. And I know that's kind of like one of my burnout checks is I have some of my favorite people come over to our house on Friday nights. And if I cannot, turn off my computer and walk out of the, like the office space that I do all my day stuff in, and be present and be excited that they're there and still have something left over for them, like, I've pushed too hard this week. But then there are other times where I'm like, there's certain people that I'm like, "Oh, they're just so draining." Like, to me, that's not self-care, that's more work, right? And that's also, like, for a purpose and, something that I wouldn't not do, like, I absolutely love it, but it just shows up differently. So I love how you're going, like, there's physical things, there's mental things, there's emotional things, there's social things, right? But not all of them are gonna be all fueling all the time, but they all do have a
Mhm.
place, in just different ways at different times.
No, I definitely agree with that. And another thing, just like adding off of like social connections as well. Like I know from like growth and experience, like after graduating college and then moving back to my hometown, when I moved back to my hometown, not all of my friends did. So now I'm
Mhm.
living in a hometown with maybe one or two of like my closest friends. Everyone else that I have ever hung out with, respected. They were like my go-tos, gone hours away. So now I have to make plans with them months in advance or like pick one weekend. And like that makes me look forward to seeing them, but also like I miss them sometimes. But then now I get to see them for like positive long weekends, you know what I mean? Instead of like every single day. Like my time with them is more valuable now.
That's really neat. I mean, one of the things that I just absolutely respect and admire of you is even in just like a short few years, really launching into your career, like you have balanced some incredibly weighty things. And so I know
Mhm.
like offline, we were kind of like, oh, we haven't worked as long. I don't work in education. But like truly, like you have and are continuing to just kind of walk through really heavy things and doing it with such grace and such, um, I don't know, like not like stability, but just like this pure, like, I've got this and I'm going for it. And that doesn't mean that every day is beautiful and perfect and everything is all together. But you are carrying a lot of heavy things and at the same time having time for friends and being able to like take care of yourself and other people around you and you're finding some of that work life balance and truly like even just meeting you as part of TLC and hearing part of your story there,
Mhm.
like it is you actively choosing a holistic life as opposed to the story that Chris and I shared last week of
Right.
how our work just completely took over. And it was kind of the, oh, right, there could be both. So I'm just absolutely in awe of you and your incredibly like grown up, I aspire to be you when I grow up type of view of having a job and how that plays as part of just also having a life and that they can both coexist.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate you saying all of that. You're like really lifting me up right now.
That's
But
the truth, girl.
yeah, it is. It really is the truth because just like what Heather was saying, it is easy to get that tunnel vision, to really be focusing on that one sector that you excel in, right? And then just keep going forward and losing touch with a lot of things. And I really like it when you were talking about kind of like what that holistic approach kind of entails. And it was more than the physical. Right away everybody goes to the physical, right?
Mhm,
That's the number one thing, or the mental. But you also have to think about your spiritual health and your emotional health, even your financial well-being, right?
mhm,
That's part of that balance that you have to seek out. um, because if we neglect any of those areas, whether it's neglecting ourselves financially or neglecting ourselves socially or neglecting ourselves emotionally or physically, it puts more stress on that table. And I don't know about you, but I know that we already have enough stress in our lives. It's how we manage it and how we persevere for a lot of these things. And how do we set those limitations so that stress isn't overly whelmingly debilitatingly?
that creates those blinders, right? Like we are in it in the grind, and then all of a sudden the stress has crept in, and now we've got business as usual, and this is just what life is, and this is just, how this will be, as opposed to pausing, pick our head up,
Right.
look around, reconsider, do that self assessment, figure out where we're at. What do we need? What do we want to shift? How do we shift that? Right. And I fully understand. I say this acknowledging that that is a luxury to be able to have a pause moment and like step away where you don't have someone who needs something and you're not just so dog tired done that you can actually put some true thoughtful mindful just energy into doing that little bit of a self-assessment to figure out where we're at. I mean, I have lots of friends that are stretched way too thin in
Mhm.
all aspects of life, and even to just listen to a conversation like this be like, that sounds great, but like how does that actually happen when everybody is stretched so thin? And that's where Claire, quite honestly, like you are just so naturally introspective. I'm curious, like,
Mhm.
do you have tips or hints? Like, how do you find the moment to just like, you know what, I'm going to recalibrate my life here for a second, or like, I'm feeling kind of pulled this way, and here's how I can, fix that. And amongst like the true, genuine stressors that are happening, it's very real.
Mhm.
Well, one thing for me, I know this might kind of sound silly, but like if I know that I'm gonna go into a really stressful work day, I'm getting myself the biggest Starbucks coffee, like my go-to drink in
Yes.
preparation for my day. Like I want like the one thing that's gonna make me happier to like make my day better. And I know that's like everyone says you shouldn't be buying coffee every single day and stuff like that. But if I want to buy coffee every single day, I'm gonna buy it. If that's gonna add to my day and make my day more successful, I'm gonna buy that coffee for myself because that's my reward to like get through what I need to do to then be done with the job and go. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I love how everybody was talking before about all the little checks that they do, the litmus tests that they have to see where they're at in this. Um, Heather, you mentioned kind of using that social aspect to determine where you're at in relation. And for me, it was always two things: my phone, right? And the people around me. And if I look on my phone and I'm constantly checking it, constantly sending emails, can it wait till tomorrow? Does it have to be right now? Is Rome burning? Do I need to do these things? And that's just one thing for that life balance, right? Being able to turn off something and giving yourself the permission and acceptance to do it and see it through. How do you, and I guess I would pose this question out to both of you, how do you see people starting that process when you feel you're on the hamster wheel, when you feel you're in the thick of it, and you feel all these expectations are coming from all these different angles, coming from yourself, coming from your students, from the environment you work in? How do you hit that pause button and still be productive? How do you find time for yourself in a world that feels overwhelmingly chaotic at times?
I tried to break it down by like one step at a time. So like if I have a million things going on in my head, I am not thinking about the 15 million things. I'm thinking about one thing that I could do. And if I do like it for 5 minutes, I did a good job. Or if I did it for 10 minutes, great job. And I'm giving myself like encouragement, like, okay, I've done that. Good job. Positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Are you ready to choose a transformative learning journey that allows you to absorb, reflect, and apply new knowledge at your own pace? This week is Workshop Week at TLC. Join us for a collection of pre-recorded, immersive learning experiences designed to empower you with practical skills and moments of introspection. Our workshops tend to be the perfect blend of structured learning and personal growth. Each session includes dedicated time for reflection and application, so you can truly internalize what you've learned. But that's not all. By becoming a member of the TLC Network, you gain access to professionals committed to walking this experience together. Learners get access to valuable webinars, enriching workshops, and engaging guest hangouts. Supporters gain access to our vibrant online community, monthly Q&A sessions, and joint discussions in a little PLC. Clever, right? Either way, you'll be among the first to access our podcast and blog pairing every week. Don't miss this unique opportunity to engage in some self-discovery and personal growth. Join us and see the positive impact this week's workshop can have on your life.
It's those small things that over time can accumulate into bigger things. I think we're really good at noticing that in other people and maybe
Right.
not always as good at noticing those things because we're just not at the goal yet, that we don't see those incremental pieces along the way. I have a good friend of ours who has felt kind of trapped in their workplace and sort of in their like career. And so often, the conversation always just turns into why? Like, why are you stuck? Why is this the end? Why is it always going to be this way? Why is there no way out? And it comes down to some of those smaller pieces that either aren't noticed as actually
Mhm.
being small, or when you put them all together, it seems so stinking big that it's just insurmountable. And so you can't even find those smaller pieces along the way. So I love the
Yeah.
way that you're saying, like, notice those small pieces. And if it's just noticing the small wins as you're making progress in that direction, or even just breaking down, like acknowledging, I am not where I want to be in life. So I want to be somewhere else, or I want something to shift or something to be different. What are some of those things that, you know, that I would actively need to do to even just start the shift? And then those become those little things. And the little thing adds up and adds up and adds up over time. And then all of a sudden, you've even got just small shifts that are different. But I think that truly is having that aha moment of, wait, where am I? How did I get here? And I do not want to be
Mhm.
here. How do I get out of here? But it's having that moment. And I think that moment hits different people differently. I think some people are very attuned to it. And so they'll notice those smaller shifts and then they'll be able to course correct a little quicker. Other people get well down and then they were like, oh, whoa,
Oof.
how did I get here? Right. And
Right.
then it's this, it's either a bigger lift or a different kind of lift to have that incremental shift, at least just moving back in the direction that we would want to. I think it looks different.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found pretty helpful for me, at least, is building in those non-adversarial based accountability partners. So if you're going to do something in that process to better yourself, whatever realm you're going to look at it, how do you build that in to having somebody that can be your motivator, can be your cheerleader, but also can be that person to help when you need someone to say, hey, you know what you haven't done today? Hey, let's go take a walk. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Because it takes a village in so many aspects of our life. And I think that good communication, whether it's a fellow teacher or whether it's an administrator, right? I've had administrators tell me, hey, this weekend, don't do any work, right? It sounds crazy to say it, but it's true. And I've heard people in administrative meetings been in the room where they said, okay, this weekend we're not doing, it's like it's scheduled plan. But to get to that point, I mean, the train's already off the tracks, right? It's your coworkers that are making a pact together to not be doing work, right? But there are other people in our lives that if we communicate these things that we're working on or we're really focusing on, we're recognizing shortcomings in ourselves or things that we can build on, bring them in. Together, it's easier. And I've always said, if you're working with a student, there's 3 ways you can get from point A to point B. You can be behind that student, pushing them along, and that's going to get resentful. You can be in front of them, pulling them along. Yeah, you're going to get to that point. There's going to be some resent. There's going to be hurt feelings. Or you can get to a point where you're collaborative and you walk side by side. And I think for me, what has helped me in this is trying to find that balance and incorporating others into that litmus that I use. And I appreciate that both of you are doing similar things, right? Because it's so hard. Oftentimes it's the eyes. We have to work on it. I have to work on myself. You recognize your own faults, right? We're our own biggest critic. But sometimes you need an outside perspective too, right?
I like what you're saying about the outside like support. So like whether that be your partner, whether that be your best friend, like as long as you have like one person you can rely on, I think that makes it easier for individuals to kind of like recognize the support they're kind of getting. But for not everyone has that one person. So I feel like kind of there is where we need to be more like willing to be more of a support for others as well.
Yeah.
Or like advocates or like just teach everyone to be nicer and more accepting. So like then not one person has to be like the rely support for one person every single time, if that makes sense.
For sure. I mean, in sharing those personal experiences, I think having the benefit, and I know on a previous podcast, Heather and Matt had an opportunity to talk about being in a building where you have, in a career where you have 5 different generations, right, working within the same field at the same time. And I think building that in is great because you've got 5 different generations of experience. I've learned as much from the success of others as from the failure as well. And sometimes there's no replacement for time and experience, and having those collaborative talks, those conversations with those around you. I mean, you're in a service field. Everybody's there to serve one way or the other, right? Service-based profession. We can also do that with our peers as well, right?
Well, but you're talking about learning from each other, right? I think
Sure.
it was maybe the first week this month or so that you were talking about lifelong learners, right? It's kind of a cornerstone of education, but this also includes these things. And I mean, I think of, I get the chance to hang out with some younger folks on a pretty regular basis. And I have learned so many things from them, not just in like the new hip lingo or making me not sound as old, but like truly these like the generations behind us have grown up with technology in ways that I didn't. And I'm kind of in that middle generation where I didn't grow up with it fully integrated everywhere, but it was still pretty prevalent. And both my parents are programmers, so we had computers, right? So there is an aspect of it's familiar to me, but it's not integrated in my day to day in the way that it is in the generations that are coming up now. And quite honestly, watching some of the younger generations have amazing boundaries with this group chat is blowing up. I'm muting them. I'll deal with that later. Right.
Right.
Just automatically, where someone in maybe my generation or an older generation would be like, oh my gosh, there's so many, notifications. I can't keep up with it. And like being stressed out by it. Or I've seen people just straight up leave group chats because it's like, I cannot handle the level of notification here. But just seeing how different generations navigate different stressors and how they then have adapted to have boundaries in different aspects, which truly just protect them. It's kind of an aspect of just caring for themselves so that then we can, go back and engage in the group or, go about doing whatever we're doing. But that is not something that is maybe kind of built into every generation. It's something that I got to learn because I was with people from a different generation that just had different skills because they've kind of grown up differently.
And that's one thing that makes me excited about the generations to come is I really think we're going to get some like really good youngers. It's going to be good. I feel good things coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, but think about it this way, right? So I'll tell you a brief story. I was talking with a kid and, like anything else, relationships, right? And so he was talking to me, telling me about all the challenges and all the things. And he pulled out his phone and he says, man, but this helps me. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, cell phone, YouTube, all these other things like hitting the gram or something like that. And he pulls out his phone and he takes to this VA app. Now, this is a student. This is a high school student. And I recognize the icon right away. I have it on my phone, right? And I'm like, where's this going to go? Curious where this conversation's going to go, right? And he goes in and he's like, look at this mindful stuff. This is amazing. I just take a break here and I just zen out on it. And I'm like, is this, do your friends know about this? Have you ever seen this? It's like, yeah, a couple of my friends showed me. And I'm like, where has this been for so long, right? I was introduced to it. And I've been poking around on it, but it's just an example of using technology in a different way that people can go on. And there's all these tools and resources that are there at your disposal these days that 20 years ago, good luck. I mean, it was not. And that comes by way of technology. It comes by way of youthful drive, a lot of different things bringing it in. And if you turn to my parents, like generation above me, they would never have thought of the resource of using an app to try and engage in mindful practices or even ACT, right? Practices that are just there and known to be pretty darn effective at your fingertips, right? And I say this as I'm aging with children, right?
You're the old guy in the room. All right.
I know. I have become the old guy in the room, which is okay. I'll play that card. I'll ride that wagon.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love that. I think this conversation has totally acknowledged that different people, different seasons, different needs, different skills, different methods. There are so many differences, and that's kind of a beautiful thing. And that if we're doing this in community and we are, choosing to kind of engage other people in our own pursuit of, quote unquote, having a life or staying sane. But if we're doing that in community, that means that we're going to bump shoulders against other people, which means we're maybe going to catch some stuff that we might not have considered, especially if we're, interacting with folks outside of our generation or outside of our own like workplace norms to see like what other options may exist out there. And then, oh, that's an aha moment for that self-reflection to maybe create some of those baby steps to see where we can go from there. So what a super cool conversation this week. I'm excited to see where we go next week when we close out the month. Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, we want to invite you to head over to thresholdlearning.org, your one-stop destination for all things TLC. Here you'll find our blog with this episode's show notes, our ever-expanding bookshelf of resources, and anything else we've talked about. Trust us, there's a ton of benefits waiting for you to explore. Just head over to thresholdlearning.org, click on network, and we'll see you on the inside. Sharing the podcast with your colleagues is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us at Threshold Learning TLC on Facebook and Instagram. A personal recommendation is by far the best way to share the podcast. Let them know they can listen on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else they catch their podcasts. Just be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. You can email us at info@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. You can find everything you're looking for at thresholdlearning.org. See you there.